Everyday Russians are starting to feel the squeeze of international sanctions from a war that some don't support. It's hard to know exactly how many support it and how many don't. But now even the most basic groceries are hard to come by in that country. And that is something that everyone is noticing. Anna Stewart has that story.
People are fighting for sugar. The words of the woman filming this video in a Moscow supermarket. The shop worker asking people to stay calm and to stop fighting. In another video posted to Telegram, you can hear shouting as sugar just arrived doesn't even make it onto the shelf before shoppers grab it. Inflation has hit more than 14% in Russia, and economist Anders Aslund expects it to reach 50% by the end of the year.
When the sanctions hit, everybody wanted to cash their rubles from the bank accounts as fast as possible, and then either get hard currency and or buy goods before the prices had increased.
According to official government statistics in Russia, certain goods have seen huge price increases. Compared to last year, sugar is 37% more expensive. The prices for bananas and tomatoes are up by around 50% and rises, albeit smaller, across a whole range of household staples. What you see here, empty shelves, is largely the result of panic buying. And some supermarkets have placed limits on how much customers can buy of certain products, like buckwheat, rice, diapers and chicken. There's also the very real risk that some products may become harder to get. Many retailers have closed their doors as Western companies exit a country waging an illegal war. The world's biggest shipping companies will no longer carry non-essential cargo, and Western countries have also banned selling certain components to Russia.
So probably about half of Russia's foreign trade has ceased. And this means that companies can't get parts. And the Russian economy is basically integrated with the world economy. My guess is that the whole automotive industry will just come to a stop very soon, because that's an area where you have many of those parts are imported.
A new car is already 20% more expensive compared to a year ago. The ruble has crashed in value, making imports more expensive, and sanctions have been in place for little over a month. How long can Russia afford to continue on in this vein?
People can run down an economy extremely badly, as we have seen in Venezuela, as we saw in Zimbabwe. The question is when the political forces says, no, this is enough.
Anna Stewart, CNN, London.
Well, the head of the UN's food aid program says the war in Ukraine could fuel a food crisis impacting 125 million people globally. David Beasley says half of the grain purchased by the World Food Program comes from right here in Ukraine, and that the war is disrupting growers' efforts to produce crops. Earlier, I spoke with members of the agricultural community here in Ukraine about their view of the crisis. Take a look. On this farm in western Ukraine, and many like it across this country, the future of food security for hundreds of millions of people around the world is being determined. 1/3 of the world's most fertile soil is in Ukraine, according to the UN. So what doesn't grow here, or what this country is unable to export because of the war, local officials tell me will cause ripple effects around the globe. The repercussions of the war in Ukraine began to impact everything, Volodymyr Romaniak tells me, including all agricultural operations inside and outside the country, including the sowing season. Western Ukraine, where this farm is located, accounts for a relatively small portion of total wheat and corn farmland. The most productive farms lie in the hottest conflict areas of the country, like Izium in eastern Ukraine. Satellite photos show the extent of the destruction in and around that city. In one video, Russian artillery positions and Ukrainian counterattacks are visible in a field. And the Ukrainian agriculture minister tells me the impact on this year's crops will be devastating.
Last season, we have approximately totally 110 million tons. This year, we expect at least 30% less than this amount. It's це дуже обнадійливий прогноз. Because we understand that the war is continue and nobody knows what will be tomorrow.
And so far this year, the minister says the country has lost almost $9 billion in agricultural revenue. Wheat is usually planted around March and harvested in the summer. But we are told on this farm near Lviv that most farmers in the conflict zone are writing this year off completely because it's simply too dangerous to work the land. This is already impacting food prices for everyone, but most acutely for people in vulnerable countries. In 2020, 80% of Lebanon's wheat imports came from Ukraine alone, 40% of Libya's, 30% of Egypt's wheat came from Ukraine last year, and now bakery prices there are jumping as high as 25%. On top of climate change and rising inequality, the Russian invasion will deepen poverty and increase instability thousands of miles from where missiles and shells are causing devastation. Back on the farm outside Lviv, we meet Pavlo Kovalchuk, who manages the fields and the other crops that grow here, like apple, plum, and walnut trees. Are you ready for the longer term? If this war lasts a long time, are you ready to dig in and keep working?
We have to be ready because we have no other choice. I and all other farmers who work with me here are ready because we are responsible for providing food, not only for Ukraine, but for other countries.
Beyond production issues, there is also a shortage of workers. Some have joined the fight against the Russian army. Others have moved to safer areas or left the country altogether. A sector that employs hundreds of thousands in Ukraine, hollowing out as the war grinds on. Ukraine is known as the breadbasket of Europe. And so a war on this country is also an attack on all those who depend on it for food.